Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to tell you the story of how we got the goat farm. What is the name of your YouTube channel?
I am on YouTube. I go by the YouTube channel Prayer Box. It is a channel that asks the listeners for their prayer requests, and then I pray with and for them.
You grew up in an urban area. What prompted your move from the urban area to the farm?
Yes, I grew up in an urban area. However, prior to our move to this area, we were living in a rural area more or less. I was learning to garden. Then the area became more developed with the construction of new subdivisions and apartments. That is what prompted our decision to move. My wife wanted to move completely out of the state, but I was hesitant to leave the state. I tried making excuses, but God said go. But God said go through a series of unexplainable events. First, unbeknown to me, my wife was praying I would have a different attitude toward moving out of state. She invited me to visit the area to which she wanted to move. I went and found it to be very lovely, but I still had reservations. I thought it would be hard to get a job. However, I was hired for the first job I applied to. I mentioned some unusual events that occurred that led me to conclude the Lord was calling us to make the move to the new place. We were at the airport, and an elderly man approached me with a strange request. He asked me if he could touch my head.
Touch your head?
For some unknown reason, I leaned over and let him touch my head. He smiled, thanked me, and walked away. We boarded the airplane. My wife and daughter were not assigned seats near me, so I thought I would nap during the ride. But no. A gentleman appeared and said I was in his seat. I'm not going to lie. I was annoyed and showed him my ticket, my assigned seat exactly where I was sitting. The man sat in the seat next to me and proceeded to start a conversation. He asked some general questions like where I was from and what I was doing. He told me about his trip and where he was from. When I told him my wife was interested in raising some goats, he was pleased. He gave me instructions on how to raise goats. He said people would be impressed by what I was doing and would reach out to help me. This is important. I will tell you more about this later. Then he told me my wife wanted the goats, but the goats were not for my wife but for me. He said the goats were to teach me how to care for a flock. Furthermore, he said to write down the things he was telling me. I can't help but be reminded of what the Lord told to Habakkuk in Habakkuk 2 verse 2. He said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables. Then he asked me if I had met a man in the airport who asked me to let him touch my head. I said yes. He said, did you let him touch you? I said yes. He just smiled and nodded knowingly. At this, I began to seriously wonder who is this strange man? Could he be a messenger from heaven? Hebrews 13 verse 2 says, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. When the plane landed, I motioned for my wife to come. I wanted to introduce her to this stranger and let her know some of the things he told me. However, when I turned back around, the man was gone. He was nowhere in sight. I don't know his name. I never asked his name, and he did not ask mine. Fast forward. We moved to the farm in 2019, but we did not have any goats. Then we purchased 2 7-week-old female goats. We had permitted our neighbor's sheep to graze on our property. One day, when the neighbor came to check on his sheep, he heard our goats. Remember the mystery man on the plane said people would help us? The neighbor told us not to get a billy goat because they are smelly and can be difficult to raise. But if we ever needed the services of a billy goat, he had one he would lend us, free of charge and with no obligation. True to his word, he lent us his goat, and now we have 16 goats on the farm.
What an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing it. And for our listeners who haven't met the 16 goats yet, stick around, I'll introduce them. Thanks for watching.